Hello everybody, this is Chippy Jesse of YouTube. So, my last video was kind of, depressing. Sorry about that, for leaving y'all on that, video. But anyways, on to the actual subject of today's video. I thought that maybe I should do something a little bit more, lighthearted this time around. And I did have like a few other ideas for videos, but I'm putting those on the back burner. One, I'm kind of not too sure how to go about it, and the other, I'm kind of restructuring just so it'll be easier on my dumbass. And because of the fact that I'm feeling rather nostalgic as of late, I thought maybe I should put my past self on full blast! Nah, but in all seriousness, I think it's no secret that my online past is all over the goddamn place. Like, I know that a lot of people that have known me just from a couple of years back only know me for my, fanime works like, Seven Guidance to Social Safety and Moon Mansion Solitary. But before I went into doing fanime, I kind of just went on the fanfiction rabbit hole. Namely, crossover fanfiction rabbit hole. And one specific crossover that I would never shut the fuck up about is the crossover of Azumanga Daioh and Super Mario RPG. Now, whether you know me or not, you might be asking yourselves, why? Well, here's the thing. Due to how my autism specifically works, the idea of combining both an anime and a video game that I adored at the time would be an awesome idea, you know what I'm saying? And if you want the details on how that started, you can read my page that I made on my website about my obsession of this bloody crossover. One thing that I'm sure a lot of people are going to squint their eyes at is the fact that I made pairings for this specific crossover. Listen, I was a confused tween and things only started to cool down when I get into my later teen years, you know? Well, things cooled down when it comes to that crossover pairing. I would say that my hyperfixations have not cooled down, like, at all. One pairing that I have thought about is, like, pairing Chiyomi Hama with Mallow. Now, while this looks weird from the outset, this pairing is surprisingly not the subject of today's video, as I'm sure that there are some folks that can't see the foundation behind it, and with the right hands, it can work. I was very much not the right hands. Though, with that said, I cannot really say the same for the other pairing that I made for the crossover, which is pairing Gino with Sakaki. I have mentioned this on my post on my site, but even though that I pushed for this pairing so bloody hard back in the day, after I stopped being afraid on shipping it, I think now, even going by the canon for both characters, I don't know if it's gonna work, my guys. I'm gonna be real. And I think it was also the fact that I was hiding the fact that during that time point, only to accept that during the later part of the decade, I used to have a crush on Gino, still do, as a matter of fact. So I thought that maybe a crossover pairing may help mask that. That would work. It did not work. But outside of that, I am really trying to wrap my head around the fact on the why I used to ship these two together, like logically so. And before anyone that knew me since 2010 will ask, no, I am not watching my old goddamn videos on the matter. Miss me with that shit. It'll just result in me yelling at my past self being like, what are you doing? But going back on point, while I do feel now that I don't see any logical appeal of both Gino and Sakaki being a couple, I do sometimes, I kind of low-key still like the aesthetic of it. I know that sounds bonkers, but hear me out. While I don't see the logical appeal of Gino and Sakaki being a couple, I do like the aesthetic of it. Like, a small part of me kind of like the aesthetic of it. And I sort of like the ideas that I have thought about the pairing, just not for the characters within that pairing. I say the closest OC pairing that I have that has that aesthetic is Vovella and Cassandra. That being said, though they are very much a healthy couple, both characters, especially Cassandra, have their own shit to deal with within the story internally, and sometimes externally too. And I say that because of that, Vavella and Cassandra are very much appearing way past that aesthetic. There's also the couple of Putty Putty Ko and Toteno from the fucking Demi-Urge fanime idea I did for the April Fool's challenge. But that is more of a joke than anything. And that also has its own goddamn lore in its own right. Also, Pari Pari Ko is more based off Konata than anything. So then I had thought to myself, what if I made 2 new characters based off exactly like that old crossover pairing, but also might be its own thing? Like, you get me? And I actually did just that. There are a couple things that I do want to know before we get started on talking about these 2 that I've made. Firstly, I know that I'm not the first person to create an OC pairing based off an old OTP from the olden days. And in my case, a former OTP. And while I know that there's other artists out there that probably did that, I know that fellow artist Ellie Bessenart had created 2 OCs based off her headcanons of her Sailor Moon OTP, Kunzite and Zoisite. Also, sorry that if that sentence was weird, it was hard to read the username. But yeah, onto the OC pairing itself. Let's talk about that. Even though that this particular pairing has similar vibes and aesthetics of like the old crossover pairing that it is based off, there are going to be some differences, starting with the designs. Firstly, even though there's going to be some similarities, the character that is based off of Gino is going to have a full head of hair and has some greens within their clothing, whether it's like the blue-green or the yellow-green. Also, the clothing that they would have themselves is based off the clothing that I gave Gino when I initially redesigned him back in 2011. That's right, during the fucking MS Paint era. Meanwhile, the character based off Sakaki has going to have some bootleg tohofication with her outfit because that's how I do roll with any of the characters I design. That and her eyes are kind of based off of how I drew Sakaki's eyes when I first draw the Gino and Sakaki ship art. Man, the old 2009 MS Paint art was rough, dude. And oh yeah, in terms of names, just so I don't have to say character based on who. The character based off Gino is named Mayone, and the character based off Sakaki is named Yumoki. And now that we got that out of the way, let's continue. In terms of personality, I would say that Mayone might be similar to Gino, just might be a little bit more on the playful side of things. Well, in some cases, because I know that they would be a bit more serious in some other cases. Yumoki, on the other hand, while she still likes cats as much as Sakaki, is a lot more shy, very much a girl failure, and has some elements of myself because why the fuck not? This is a self-indulgence story, don't judge me. Now, believe it or not, I have thought about like some in-universe origin of these 2, actually. And I have it written down, so here we go. In story, Yumoki is living with a friend, and both of them are still in the process of some personal issues that may have yet to be revealed. And while she is scared of some puppets at first, namely that one puppet that looks like Spantum from Deltarune, she is low-key enamored by this one puppet that didn't seem to be scary to her at all, which is a puppet that is dubbed Mayone. All the while, there is this spirit that has talked with Yumoki in her dreams, who has existed around the same time Yumoki herself was born. It's at a point where both wanted to get to know each other and being able to interact with each other physically. One night, Yumoki confessed to the spirit that she is feeling enamored by the Mayone doll, then and is very much unsure why. This gives the spirit incentive to muster up the energy to possess the doll in question, becoming Mayone themselves. Silly comedy to budding romance ensues. So yeah, as you can tell, there are some elements of a shy dark-haired girl being enamored by a doll possessed by an otherworldly being is a trope that exists even within like the old Gino and Sakaki pairing, but there are some elements that makes it separate from the old crossover pairing. And honestly, even though that I acknowledge the fact that I had to pull shit out of my ass to make sure that these two would make sense in universe, I am starting to like Yumoki and Mayone as a pairing because of how their in-universe thing is set up, and I'm mad about it. Now, I know that some folks are going to say that Gino and Sakaki as a couple doesn't have to make sense in either universes of both Mario RPG and Azuma Daioh, as there are a lot of people that would ship weirder pairings out there, crossover or otherwise. And I cannot really deny of that being the case, and I'm not opposed to the idea of non-canon pairings. In the case of Mario, I have warmed up to Gennario over the years, and this is coming from someone who is basically a Yume Joshi for Gino. Also, I do have nostalgia for another pairing that Gino is in, which is Gino and Vivian. I know that some people find that to be cliche, but I think it's cute. As for Sakaki, I am not exactly sure of who would I pair her up with. The closest thing I could think of is either Kaorin, because duh, Kagura, because there's a nice friendship between the two, and maybe Osaka. So you know, I'm all for non-canon pairings. What I am saying is that even though I like the aesthetics of the pairing, I cannot in good faith ship it anymore. And it's more or less due to the fact that I don't know how the fuck it can work, even in AUs. Though the fact that this newly made OC pairing makes more sense to me than the old crossover pairing due to in-universe explanation is so goddamn bonkers to me. As I said though, I am not the first person to create an OC pairing based off an old OTP, but I do wonder if I'm the first to do it with a crossover pairing. Probably not, let's be real. But back on point, I am almost tempted to make a proper story of these two, but I'm also wondering if I should make it a fanime/web series, an audio drama, or a properly coded visual novel. Also, I'm also wondering if I would even have motivation for this hypothetical story, is I have a shit ton of other stories to deal with. Anyways, I think it's time for me to wrap up. Thank you so much for watching this bizarre-ass video. I know that to the average person, there are going to be some eyebrows raised. But regardless, I hope you enjoy this video. And now I have a question that I may have to ask some of you. If you have a pairing that you used to ship back in the day, I do have to ask, do you still ship them? And would you make an OC couple based off of elements of said pairing? Leave it in the comments down below. And on that note, that is that. This is Chibi of YouTube signing out. Goodbye!